In this small dust collector, I use a centrifugal separator, which is kind of a cross between a Thien-baffle and a regular Cyclone. And the performance characteristics of this thing are quite interesting, so in this video I'll explore that a little bit more. So the filter that I'm using is actually this microparticle reduction furnace filter, but I'm a bit disappointed with its performance. Let me show you. I slid the cover away here and I have a small notch here so I can push some of this white flour into the channel right after the separator so I can see how much of it the filter catches. And I've got a bright light here against the black recycling bin so that hopefully I can see if any dust is coming through it. Pushing the dust in here, and you can see some of the dust is making it through the filter. So this filter is not perfect in catching all the dust, all this flour that I'm running through it right now. Now, just for comparison, let's take out the filter and try that same experiment again. Okay, that was just a little wee bit of flour, so maybe that filter was catching a lot of the dust. But now, let's do another experiment. Without the filter in here, I'm going to just suck some of this flour through my separator. So here's the hose for the separator, and let's pull some of that dust in there and see what happens. And you can see there's very little dust that comes out. So the amount of dust that I ended up sucking through the Cyclone afterwards was much more than I ran through here, and the amount of dust that came out was less. So it looks like this cylindrical separator here is actually more effective at separating out white flour than this microparticle filter is. And let's have a look inside the collection bucket. And there's our flour. So the Cyclone can really take out a lot of fine particles as long as it's not overloaded. But the problem is it causes a huge amount of air resistance, which causes a large drop in airflow. So right now I've got a pitot tube hooked up here, which I'm going to read on here how much airspeed I've got coming out of my blower. And I've got the filter box open so that I'm bypassing the filter. So let's start this up. Amount of airflow here because this Cyclone makes for a large amount of air resistance. So the Cyclone has got big enough holes going in and coming out, so what causes all this air resistance? So the way my separator works is air comes in through here, and there's a slight constriction here to really shoot it in there, and it circulates around and around and around, and the centrifugal force forces all the dust towards the edges where it falls through a gap around the edge into the bucket. The problem is this air is circulating around and around and around to get on the inside, and centrifugal force is always pushing it out. So really, imagine if this was like a blower and there was an impeller here and it was spinning this direction. So we're actually, this thing is like we're sucking air through a blower in reverse because all this centrifugal force put together causes a huge amount of back pressure. So I switched to an external mic so I don't have to talk as loud. And here's measuring the vacuum just upstream of the filter. So we have this much vacuum right here. And let's see where all that vacuum is going, because obviously right here, no hose on here, we have no vacuum. So let's put the hose inside the separator and see how much vacuum we have in various parts of the separator. So now I've got the hose in the middle of the separator, and there's actually even more vacuum here than we had here. So from the middle of the separator we have this much vacuum, and towards the edges of it we have almost no vacuum. So there's a huge amount of pressure differential just inside this separator, and that's what causes all this air resistance and loss of airflow. So I'm going to shoot some air in here with an air compressor, just spin the Cyclone up extra fast, and we'll see what happens. So by shooting air in here to spin this up even further, that causes so much back pressure that it really reduces the airflow here. In fact, if I put my hand here, that's about the same. Now the other thing I can do is I'm going to stick this little hook in here, which will slow down some of the air circulation. So that'll detune the Cyclone a bit, and if I put that in here, I actually get more airflow. For another cool experiment, I'm going to drop this paddle into the separator. So let's open this up here and put this in here. So now with this out, I have this much airflow, and as I drop it in, airflow actually increases. And if I let go of this, it'll spin quite violently because there's so much circulation going on inside the separator. In fact, this will spin, I've measured this spinning 120 turns per second. That's twice the RPM of the actual blower motor. So much magic, and it's just an empty box inside.